I told Chris I had a long lesson, didn't know if I was going to get him out on time. This is a 10-point lesson, so what, 5-10 minutes a point? Right? 10 rules for a great life. John 8:32 said you should know the truth. The truth will make you free. The funny thing is we need the rules, but we run from the rules like we're scared to death of rules. But rules are really what we need to win the game. You can't win a game without rules. You can't play a game of tic-tac-toe without rules. Now, if you can't play tic-tac-toe without rules, how are you going to live life as complicated as it is without rules? So it is the rules that make the victory possible. So instead of whining about the rules, fussing about the rules, we ought to go, wow, I got the rules. Now I know how to win. And what I want to do is I want to win. I want to get some traction. I want to make some progress in life. And that's what the rules give me. So rule number 1, we're going to put God first in all things. Matthew 6:33 said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Hebrews 11:6 says he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Now the trick is we have to be honest with ourselves and go, am I really, really putting the kingdom of God first? Am I playing by the rule? Am I doing what the rule says? Or am I just dabbling, trying to get credit for playing by the rule? And there's 2 different results from that, and that's one of those points where you just have to learn to be brutally honest with yourself. Matthew 22:37 says, we love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. Everything that makes the package that we call me, you call you. Be passionately in love with God as though he is the most important thing that ever came into your life. That's the idea there. And I should think allegiance, that may be also a good way to look at it if that helps you a little bit. Mark 8:36, he says, what if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? Like earth's not your priority. It's not wrong to have a good life, to have a fun life, to enjoy your life. But the cold hard fact is it's appointed a man wants to die, Hebrews 9:27. And I don't mind saying it, you're going to die. One of these days I'm going to your funeral and you're going to mine, but that's the way it works. And I'd rather go to yours before you go to mine, but we don't get to make that call, do we? It's getting ready to happen. And that's not all that mean and bitter and cold, especially as we get older in life. You know, we tease about, how long you want to live. How would you like to live to be 180? And a lot of us, after we got somewhere past 50, said, you got to be kidding. No way. I've done my time here. I'm ready to move on. Now, when you're young, well, that's a whole different story, but earth's not the priority. God is the priority. That's the number 1 rule to get it. God is, I really worded this wrong. I said God's at the center of victory. God is the victory. He is the inheritance. He is the reward. It's not just about getting close to God. It is about, it's hard to put it into words, winning God, being one with God. As Christ prayed in John 17, that we would all be one in him as he and the Father were one. Now, I don't even know how to illustrate the oneness of the Father and the Son, but that's the victory. And the only way to get that victory is for it to truly, honestly, 100% be your number 1 top priority. And I don't mean just the thing you put at the top of your list, because we can put anything at the top of the list and jump down to number 4 real easy. I mean that thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. Then we're going to be grateful, not entitled. 1 Thessalonians 5:18 says, in all things give thanks. Underline that, scored in all things. Is it happening to you? Then you find a way to be thankful for it. Now, some of it's real easy to do, right? But some of it you're going to go, wait a minute, preacher. No, don't wait a minute, preacher, me. You wait a minute, Paul. Because Paul's the one that said, in all things give thanks. I didn't say it. I'm just telling you what Paul said. In fact, Paul didn't say it. Who said it? Oh, the rule maker said it. God said it. And if you're going to have that greatest, most victorious life, you're going to learn how to do it. And it's really just about some perspective, isn't it? Now, we could go really deep into this, but we're not. But we go to 2 Corinthians chapter 12, and Paul was a thorn in the flesh, and he prayed 3 times that it be removed. And I'd say to you, go ahead and pray. Anything you want to pray about, you pray about it. But don't be surprised if God says, no, you need that thorn in the flesh. And it was because of that very thorn in the flesh that Paul learned how to manage, accept, and embrace, and be grateful for, that he reached a whole nother level of spirituality that he would have never, ever have reached had God taken that thorn away from him. And then he can say, after he reaches that level, I rejoice in tribulations. There's your gratitude. It can happen, but it is a growing process. So Philippians 2:14 tells us not to murmur and complain. Because if you murmur and complain, it's going to undermine your gratitude. It's going to undermine your day. It's going to make you look kind of cranky, actually. But it's just going to kind of take some of the joy out of your day, if not completely out of your day. If you walk around all the time looking at what's wrong, always focusing on what's wrong, complaining about it, finding anybody who will bemoan it with you, and there are plenty of them out there, you just end up going a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. Now, if something is wrong and you have the ability to address it and deal with it and improve it, go right ahead. But you don't have to complain and moan and whine about it the whole time. You just say, here's what's wrong, here's the plan to fix it. Now let's get involved in the plan and get on to the process. But if you just sit around and complain about it, nothing's going to happen. So we've said for years and years, probably longer than I've been alive, if life gives you lemons, what do? Say, make lemonade. I say, amen. That's exactly what the Bible teaches. James chapter 1, verse 2 through 4, he says, give thanks in everything. Be grateful. Rejoice. Why? Because it trains us that we may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. It gives us everything we need. But you got to be grateful for the training. And the training can be hard. So I'm going to use my Navy SEAL example. You know, those guys, they go through some hard training. It hurts. It hurts so bad that now and then one of them will actually die in the process of the training. It hurts so bad that multiple ones of them will go what they call ring the bell and say, I'm done, I quit. But the ones that don't quit get to the other side. And we call them Navy SEALs. And we look at them and go, wow, how did you do that? And they found the victory. Why? Because somehow in their head they understood, yes, this is hard, this hurts, but this is the path to get to where I want to go. And they were grateful for the struggle that led them to where they wanted to go. I have a book in my office called The Bumps Are What You Climb On. It's an old book from the 1980s, and it's basically saying the same thing. Life gives you some bumps, grab a hold of them and climb a little bit higher. And be grateful for the handhold. At least you're not having to do a smooth glass finish cliff ascent where you got nothing to grab a hold of. It gives you something to grab a hold of. James 50, verse 20, Joseph, after his father died, getting into his career quite well, his brothers came to him worried that he was going to get his vengeance. And he said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Joseph was able to take a situation that would leave some people wounded all the way to their grave. And he was able to redefine it in such a way where he saw the blessing in it. That didn't change the evil his brothers did. They were still bad guys. But he changed the meaning and the purpose in his life and turned lemons into lemonade. And enjoyed a victory that we have trouble imagining. And of course, this is all something we learn. Philippians 4:11 and 12. Paul said, I have learned in whatever state I am in to be content. I've learned how to be full. I've learned how to be hungry. How do you learn it? You have to experience it. And you have to go through it. And when you learn that you're learning, I know that sounds a little redundant, but I'm going to flesh it out. When you learn that you're learning, you start growing. Now, some of those things are tough. They're really, really hard. But I've told you in the past, I'm getting ready to tell you again, how tough you really are. And you're tougher than you realize. Because every single one of you, whether you're the youngest here, or you're the oldest here, we won't point that person out, whether you're young or old, you have survived literally everything that life has thrown at you to this very day. Life is yet to defeat you. Life is yet to take you out. You're still here. You're still playing the game. Now, the only question is, what are you going to do with that information? Look at your past. Look what's happened to you. And I don't want to start, like comparing scars, but a lot of us have been through some really hard, ugly things. Now, the question is, are we going to be like Joseph and go, look, you meant it for evil, God meant it for good, and because the evil you did, I'm the tough person I am today. I'm able to stand today. I'm able to look at tomorrow today and go, I can do it because I see what I've been through. That's the learning process. That's what it means to learn. So if you're a little curious about it, I want you to sit down this afternoon before you drift off to your nap, and I want you to think of all this kind of pessimistic sounding, some of the darkest, ugliest, horriblest, most painful things you have been through. List 3 or 4 of them. And at the end of it going, I'm still here. Satan hadn't won yet. And I'm not going to let him win. That's how to have a great life. That's how to do it. Don't play the comparison game. Please, please, please don't play the comparison game. Godliness with contentment is great gain. That's 1 Timothy 6:6. That's all you need. If you got God, you got everything you have. Comparison is a thief that's in your heart that steals your joy. Anytime you sit around going, oh, they got a better car than I do. Oh, they got a prettier house than I do. And that may be true. But anytime you sit around and say those things, who is stealing your joy? Are they stealing your joy because they bought a nice car? Are they stealing your joy because they built a good house? Are they stealing your joy because they put years into college to get their degrees? Who's stealing your joy when you sit around and look at other people and go, oh, look how great they got it. And I'm just living this little nasty old puny life. Who's stealing your joy? You are. That's pretty obvious, isn't it? Now, why would you do that to you? And if you get to play in that game, you can never win that game because there's always somebody higher up the ladder until you become the world's number one most wealthiest person on the planet. And then there's still other people who look at it and go, yeah, but he's got a better wife than I do, or he's got a better husband than I do, or they got better health than I do. There's still, you can play that game till, yeah. So, media has trained us to do the comparison game because that's what media does so well. Facebook is horrible about it. I like my Facebook, but you be aware, I'm not about to compare my daily life to your highlight reels. You put your highlight reels on there. I like them. I like to see you having a good day. But I'm smart enough to know that's a highlight reel. And that your whole day wasn't that way. And your whole week definitely wasn't that good. And we get into months and years, I know way better. So you're in the middle of that celebration, you're having a good time. You go right ahead and you put that on Facebook, and I'll kind of maybe like it or smile to myself as I go past it. But I'm not about to compare myself to it. Because, as you know, life as well as I do. Corporate America tells you got to have more, you got to have more, you got to have more. When's that ever going to stop? Never. Why is that never going to stop? Because the way corporate America makes money is to make you feel like you're less than, so you'll go buy more, so you'll feel better than, but then they'll tell you, no, we got a new one, yours isn't good enough anymore. What's our iPhones on now? Are we on iPhone 16? 422? I don't know what our numbers are. Remember when we had a flip phone? We thought, this is the greatest thing. I remember when we had a pager. We thought, look, this is awesome, It's always going to keep going. That's the way it works. Now, I don't want to take your iPhone away from you. I'm going to get the 17, 18, whatever comes out next. I think they're fun. But it's not the secret to living a victorious life. So, our so-called meager lives, come on. King Solomon didn't live like we live. Come on, when did he ever set the thermostat? I got to watch out, King Solomon. 700 wives. Come on, he didn't have it as good as I did. He had to go through 1,000 to find one he liked, I think. If you take that's what the Song of Solomon's for. I got a good one the first time. I'm outdoing him already, right? But he never said to any of his servants, it's a little warm in here. Go set the thermostat on 68 for me. He never said, boy, I'm kind of in the mood for tacos. Let's run down to Taco Bell. You know how long it would took them to whip up some tacos? I mean, we live an awesome, fantastic life, and he got in a chariot. At best, he had a little sun cover over him. And this is what I want, some slaves running across beside me with big fans. Fanning me. No, I want my AC on. Hebrews 13:5. This is the winning point. God said, I will never desert you. Never, ever. That's the victory right there. The rest of this is just window dressing, and you're going to leave it all behind. Guard your heart and your mind. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart and your mind. You got to. You can't let just any old thing in there. Whatever you put in your mind, it's going to start growing. And some of that's good, some of that's really bad. Colossians 3:2 said, set your mind on heaven. And that's where we want your mind the whole time. This world is not my home. I'm just passing through. Victory, it's going to be more of an inside game than an external game. Were people able to get to heaven back in the first century? Somebody go, yeah. But wait, they didn't have Wi-Fi. How could they get to heaven back then when they didn't have Wi-Fi? Because Wi-Fi don't count. Could they get to heaven in the 5th, 6th century? Still a pretty ugly time. But they didn't have electricity. You see, all of this other stuff, it's external and we enjoy it and it's a blessing. But it has nothing to do with you getting to heaven. Your victory is an internal game about you and your issues and your aggravations and your problems and whatever is sneaking in between you and God. And without running off track too much, if you want to know what it is, I've got a simple way to tell you. What aggravates you? What steals your peace? What makes you just go, oh? Now, I don't care what it is, but whatever that is, you found an area you need to work on. Just that simple. Matthew 6:22, 30, 23, it's about the eye being the lamp. If you're out there looking and your eyes dark, so to speak, then your whole body's going to be full of darkness. But if you can learn to see the light, you let the right stuff in. The old computer adage, garbage in, garbage out. Romans 12:2, don't be conformed to this world. I like my Pine Bluff. I like my Cleveland County, my Jefferson County, and the things we do. But I don't want to be here forever. I don't want to be conformed to this at the lower rate as you look at it overall. Don't do that. Forgive quickly. Ephesians 4:32 tells us to forgive one another as God in Christ also forgave us. That's a pretty high order. But unforgiving is a prison you create. And I know all the games we play. Well, preacher, I want to forgive them, but I can't forgive them until they asked me to, can I? And technically, that is absolutely 100% correct. So since that's absolutely, totally, 100% technically correct, I'm just going to sit here in my prison cell and be miserable and bitter until they decide to come say, I am so sorry I treated you that way, and I did this or that in your life, and let me out of my cell. Forget that. I'm leaving it. I don't have to carry that baggage if I don't want to, do I? So I'm not. Thank you, Edmund. I'm not going to carry it. I don't want to be in prison. Matthew 6:14-15 says if we don't forgive others, He won't forgive us. In Colossians 3:13, again, tells us the same thing, to be forgiving. So it's just a gift you give yourself. I like that idea. And you've heard me say that one for years. Number 6, work for God. Colossians 3:22, we've used it a lot lately. That's the one written to the slaves. But it tells the slaves, whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord. And I try to break it down and try to get you to see what we're talking about. What did the slaves do? Well, they washed feet. They shucked corn. I don't know if they had corn back then, but you get the idea. They shoveled manure out of stalls. They carried water. They split wood. They ground wheat in that rock with the rock on top of it. You get it? They did everything that the boss wanted done, and it was not usually high-level stuff. And Paul said, I want you to grind that wheat like you're grinding it for God. I want you to shovel out that stall like you're shoveling it out for God. When you do that laundry, I want you to do it like that's God's laundry. That's hard to get your head around, isn't it? But if you want a rule for living a great life, then you take your ordinary tasks and you learn to make them sacred. Now, it is no secret. I do not like yard work. It is not my high-end thing. I never sat around going, ooh, I wish I could get out there and cut the grass. But I did get out there Friday night and take a stab at it. And I'd been working on this lesson. I tried to tell myself I'm cutting grass for Jesus. Didn't work real well. It's kind of hard to get that in your head, but I'm like, this is the Lord's yard, right? And I don't mean parsonage-wise. I mean world-wise. It ain't my yard. I'm going to die. Somebody else will be cutting it in 50 years from now. Maybe less than that. But it's actually God's yard. And I don't care if we're talking about my yard or yours. That's hard to do. But that's what Paul said to do. So it's a matter of attitude. It's a matter of focus. 1 Corinthians 10:31, you do it all the glory of God. That's what it's all about. Are you loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher, taking out the trash? I keep it really, really trivial because that's 90% of our life, isn't it? Maybe 98% of your life. How much of your life would you say really hits the high end? I'm gassing up my car. I'm running to the bank. I'm going to get some groceries up at Super One. Come on, start listing out everything you do. And most of what we do is mundane, routine, and nobody cares. And if I have that mental attitude, well, this is mundane and nobody cares, I'm not going to have a happy life. But if I can do everything I do and do it to the glory of God, now I got a different avenue opened up to me. Number 7, we want to speak life. Proverbs, let me look that one up. Proverbs is good. It says life and death are in the power of the tongue. Let's give that one a shot. What did I say? Proverbs 18. I can't even find Proverbs. You ever had that problem? 21. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. So how you talk, it makes a difference. So I want you to think that every word you say, and think of it as a seed. You're just out there sowing it. You're just sowing seed. It's just spewing out of your mouth all the time. Do you really want it to grow? Ooh, wait a minute, preacher. What did you say? Yeah, every word is a seed. Do you want it to grow? No, I think I'll quit talking. I'll slow things down. Matthew 12:36 says, every idle word we speak we'll give an account of for God. By our words we will be condemned, and by our words we'll be justified. Words are really, really important. We tend to dismiss words, but Christ put them really high on the list. So the way we speak, it can lighten our day or it can drag us down. And who gets to choose what you talk about? Well, you do for the most part. So let your speech always be with grace. That's one of the rules of life. Embrace humility. God opposes the proud. Now, let that soak in a second. He didn't say God's disappointed with the proud. He didn't say, well, God really didn't like the proud. He said God opposes the proud. Do you want God opposing you? Then get proud. He'll oppose you all day long because that's what God does. He opposes the proud. You want humility. Philippians 2:3. Learn to be humble. I'd press on the upward way. And your pride doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be arrogant. It doesn't have to be public. Your pride can be anything that makes you prideful. I have a diploma and they don't. Pride. I have better clothes. Pride. I have a nice car. They don't. Pride. I have a better savings account. I manage money better than they do. I mean, it may be true, but still. Pride. I have a better marriage. Pride. I have better. You see this is the comparison game again. And now what we're adding to it is simply, I am better than another individual because of. And God says, no. You deserve hell just like the rest of them. And we do. Luke 18:14, the Pharisee and the tax collector. We all know the story. And it was the tax collector that went home justified because he was humble. So if you want honor, and I'm thinking about honor in heaven, then you want humility. Are other people different than you? Absolutely. Do you have more than some people? Sure. Do you have less than some people? Oh, yeah. But don't let it be your value system. It is what it is, and move on. Number 9, learn to be a servant. It's more blessed to give than to receive. That's a hard one to learn, but that's your primary disposition of heart, is a giving heart. And I think what we're really looking at is not so much stuff, but most people just need a little validation. They need a little attention. They need a little assistance now and then. And so we're just going to serve them on that spiritual level. Now, if you have other levels, sure, serve on those levels. But spiritually, emotionally, is what a lot of people really need. And when you learn to serve, then God said you're going to get back pressed down and running over. Now, how many of you like the sound of that one? I want it back, pressed down and running over. God said, okay, I got a rule for that. Serve. You give it away like it's not yours. One who withholds what is right only suffers need. Don't hold it back. Let it out there. It's not yours anyway. You're giving it up. It's just a question of when you're giving it up. Now, I'm talking mostly about time and attention, but you're going to give that up too. What are you going to give your time and attention to in the grave? Oh, okay. Nothing, huh? Now, I don't know how the other side works, but as far as this world goes, you're giving it all up sooner or later. Why not invest it in a way that stores up treasures in heaven? I can be selfish and keep it to myself. That's not going to work long term. Or I can invest in other people. And number 10, 10-point lesson, and we're going to have a little bit of time to spare. How about that? Stay focused. Set your mind on heaven. This is all about heaven. Remember what Brother Bowman said? If you miss heaven, you just miss all there is. This world ain't your home. It is not your home. Psalms 90:10 says you get 70 to 80 years. Nowadays, we get a little longer on average because we have good medical care, though we crap about it a lot. We do have good medical care. But so what if you get 90, 93, 102? You're still going to die. And you're going to lay in that casket at 102, and they're going to go, well, she looks pretty good for 102. Okay. You know what they're really going to say? By the time you get to be 102, they're going to go like, that's a face only a mama could love. Don't worry about the world and all of that. Gain the world and lose your soul? Mm-mm. I want my citizenship in heaven. It is in heaven. So, Luke 10:20 is after the disciples come back and they're rejoicing that they could do the miracles and cast out demons. He said, no. He said, I want you to rejoice that your names are written in heaven. You ever wonder what it'd be like to do a miracle? You know, doesn't it just kind of like stir your curiosity a little bit? And Jesus says, you've got something more wonderful in a miracle than a miracle in your life already. Your name's written in heaven. That's better than casting out demons and doing miracles. That's how to live a victorious life. Good life, it's possible if you play by the rules. You just have to make the choice as to whether or not you're going to play by the rules. We're getting ready to sing Prepare to Meet Thy God. If you're prepared, stay the course. If you're not, we'll help you any way we can. While together we stand and sing.